The marketplace on Zerion 7 was alive with chaos. Towering spires of metal and glass reflected the harsh orange light of the planet's twin suns. Merchants called out their prices, their voices mixing with the clatter of machinery and the distant roar of starships. Every corner of the market was packed with beings from hundreds of worlds. Some had scales, some had feathers, and some had skin that shimmered like liquid silver. It was a place of wealth, power, and danger. Commander Kale walked through the crowd, his boots echoing on the metal walkways. He was a human warrior, tall and strong, with eyes that seemed to measure everything. Around him, traders and buyers turned, whispering. Humans were rare in these parts. Many saw them as brutes, others as legends. Kyle didn't care. He had a mission, and it had nothing to do with fame or fortune. Ahead, a large platform rose above the crowd. Holographic displays flickered, showing the next items for auction. There were rare artifacts, advanced technology, and living beings. Some whispered that a few of the beings were slaves. Kale's stomach tightened. He hated cruelty. But he also knew that in this universe, sometimes the right choice meant stepping into danger. On the platform, a transparent cage held a single figure. She was small, but her presence filled the space. Her skin was a soft blue, patterned with delicate streaks of silver. Her eyes were large and violet, wide with fear. Every muscle in her body was tense, her hands gripping the bars of the cage. The auctioneer's voice boomed. Next, a rare being from the planet Loriax, intelligent, psychic, and skilled in starship navigation. Who will start the bidding? The crowd stirred. Many aliens raised their claws or tentacles, signaling their offers. Kyle stepped closer. He had heard of the Loriaxians. They were clever and mysterious, often refusing to leave their homeworld. If captured, they could be dangerous, but also invaluable allies. The alien woman in the cage turned her head and saw Kale. Her eyes widened in terror. She had never seen a human before. Her instincts screamed to flee, but the bars held her tight. Kale noticed her fear, and something in him stirred. He didn't want to buy her as property. He wanted to protect her. The auctioneer continued. Do I hear 5,000 credits? 10,000? Some bidders raised their offers quickly. Kale's hand hovered near his communicator. He wasn't planning to fight anyone today, but he wasn't afraid either. When the bids reached 20,000 credits, he spoke. I bid 50,000 credits, he said firmly. The crowd murmured. 50,000 credits was high, but Kyle didn't care. He wanted her safe. The auctioneer hesitated, then looked at the other bidders. 50,000 credits, do I hear more? A few more bidders raised their hands. Kale did not move. When the count reached 75,000, a sharp, green-scaled alien made one last attempt. Kale raised his voice, calm but commanding. 100,000 credits. A hush fell over the crowd. No one else moved. The auctioneer's eyes widened. Sold, he shouted. To the human, Commander Kale. The cage doors opened. Kale stepped forward slowly, careful not to startle her. The alien woman shrank back, her hands raising instinctively. I'm not going to hurt you, Kale said gently. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. You're safe now. She didn't respond. Her eyes darted around, searching for escape, for a trap, for anything. Kyle knelt slightly, lowering himself so he wouldn't appear threatening. Come with me, he said softly. Finally, she hesitated, then stepped forward. Her movements were cautious, almost as if she were expecting the floor to swallow her. Kale guided her to the hover platform that would take them to his ship. As they left the auction, Kale kept a careful eye on the other bidders. Some looked angry. Others whispered among themselves. Kale ignored them. His focus was entirely on the small, frightened alien beside him. The hover platform lifted into the sky, and the marketplace became a blur below. The alien woman, finally realizing they were leaving, whispered in her strange musical language. Kale did not understand the words, but he could hear the fear behind them. Don't worry, Kale said. I'm not like the others. I won't hurt you. She stared at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of confusion and hope. Kyle had seen fear before, He had seen distrust, but he had never seen it so pure, so raw. The ship waited in orbit, sleek and silent. Kyle guided her aboard, showing her the way to the guest quarters. It was simple, clean, and safe. No chains, no cages, nothing to make her feel trapped. Just a place to rest. She moved cautiously, still watching Kyle with wide eyes. He noticed every tiny gesture, every shift in her posture. He knew trust would not come easily, and he was ready to earn it. "I need to know your name," Kale said finally. She hesitated, then spoke slowly, her voice trembling. "Liara." "Liara," Kale repeated. "You are safe now. I promise." For the first time, she allowed herself to look around the room. Her fear did not disappear, but curiosity began to take its place. Kale could see it in the way her head tilted, in the way her fingers brushed over the smooth surfaces of the ship. "Thank you," she whispered, though Kale still could not be certain if she meant it. Kale nodded. "Rest now. We have a long journey ahead. You'll learn about humans. You'll see the universe, and you'll see that not all humans are cruel." As Liara lay down, she glanced out the viewport. Stars stretched infinitely across the sky, more than she had ever imagined. For a moment, the fear inside her dimmed. The adventure, terrifying as it was, promised something new, something unknown. Kale watched her quietly. He had no doubt this would be a journey filled with challenges. But he also knew that sometimes fear could turn into trust and terror could become wonder. Humans had a way of proving that even in a universe filled with danger, courage and compassion could shine. And in that moment, aboard his ship, Commander Kale made a silent promise to himself. He would protect Liara, no matter the cost. The stars outside seemed to shimmer in agreement, a silent witness to the beginning of something extraordinary. The ship hummed softly as it glided through the void, stars streaking past in slow, endless lines. Inside, Commander Kyle moved with purpose, checking controls and scanning the navigation charts. Liara sat quietly in the corner of the guest quarters, her arms wrapped around her knees. Her violet eyes, wide and cautious, followed every movement. She had never been on a human ship before. Everything was different. The smell of clean metal, the soft glow of the lights, and the gentle vibrations beneath her feet. Despite Kale's promises, her mind could not quiet the fear that gnawed at her. Humans, she had heard, were unpredictable, strong, dangerous, and sometimes cruel. Kale noticed her tension. He had seen it in countless other beings, though none were quite like Liara. She was intelligent, sensitive, and wary in ways that hinted at her psychic heritage. He knew that trust would not come quickly. "Liara," he said gently, breaking the silence. "You don't have to be afraid of me. I'm not your enemy." She flinched at the sound of her name. Slowly, she lifted her head and met his eyes. For a brief moment, she considered testing him, as her species often did. Humans were strange, but some could be trusted, if proven. "I do not know you," she said softly, her voice melodic but trembling. "Why should I trust you?" Kale sat down a few feet away, careful to appear non-threatening. "Because I will not hurt you. I do not believe in cruelty. And because, whether you like it or not, you are under my protection now. You have a choice. Stay here and learn, or run and risk what the galaxy throws at you." Her eyes darted toward the door, then to the viewport, imagining herself escaping into the vast emptiness of space. Her instincts screamed to flee, but Kyle had not only strength, he had patience. That made him dangerous in a way she could not predict. Later, when Kale left the room to check the ship's systems, Liara moved quickly. She approached the door with silent steps, her heart pounding. If she could reach the corridor, she might be able to find the small maintenance exit and disappear into the lower decks. She just needed a few moments. As she pressed her hand against the door, it clicked. A light above glowed and the door slid open. Liara's violet eyes widened. Kyle had not locked it. He trusted her enough to leave it accessible. Her curiosity clashed with her fear. Maybe humans were not all cruel. Maybe some could be different. She moved through the corridor, careful to avoid the soft hum of the ship's sensors. The walls were smooth, white and cold beneath her fingers. The lights above flickered slightly, casting shadows that danced across her path. Each step made her pulse quicken. She had never felt so alive, or so vulnerable. Finally, she reached a junction where two corridors met. She could hear the faint sound of the ship's engines, the gentle vibration beneath her feet. Her plan was simple: reach the maintenance exit, slip out, and find somewhere to hide until the ship reached open space. Just as she rounded the corner, a hand gently rested on her shoulder. She spun around, expecting violence, but found Cale, standing there. His expression was calm, not angry. His hand was steady, almost reassuring. "You're moving too fast," he said softly. "You don't need to run. The ship is safe. I've kept it safe for you." Liara hesitated. Her instincts told her to flee, but his voice, his calm presence, made her pause. No one else had ever spoken to her like this. Not with patience, not with understanding. Humans were supposed to be impulsive, but Cale, he was different. "You will not hurt me?" she asked cautiously. "I promised," he said, Simdial. The ship Resolute glided silently through a section of space that glowed with strange colors. It was a nebula, unlike any Liara had ever seen. A swirling mass of blues, purples, and golds that stretched for thousands of kilometers. The lights of the nebula danced across the ship's hull, painting the interior with strange patterns. For Liara, it was both terrifying and mesmerizing. She pressed her face to the viewport, her violet eyes wide. The swirling gases and sparkling particles made her feel dizzy, as if the universe itself was alive and moving around her. "What is that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Cale joined her quietly, standing beside her. His presence was calm, solid, like the ship itself. "That's a nebula," he said simply. "Gas and dust from dead stars, glowing as they move through space. Beautiful, isn't it?" Liara's hands gripped the edges of the viewport. Her heart was still racing, from fear. Fear of humans, fear of space, fear of being so small in a universe so vast. But now, mixed with that fear, was awe. She had never imagined anything like this. Stars alone had been bright enough. This was something else. They are alive," she said softly, almost to herself. Cale shook his head with a small smile. "Not alive, but close. They move, react to energy, and create beauty from chaos. That is what the universe does. It gives, even when it destroys." Liara's mind tried to absorb it all. Her species valued knowledge and understanding, but seeing something so vast, so unpredictable, stirred a mixture of emotions she did not fully recognize. Fear still lingered, but wonder was growing stronger. Suddenly, a soft alarm sounded. Kyle's eyes flicked to the console. "Energy storm," he said, his voice calm but focused. "The nebula reacts to our shields. It's creating localized turbulence, nothing we can't handle, but some of the smaller life forms in the area could be in danger." Liara's curiosity was piqued. "Life forms?" she asked, leaning closer. Kyle nodded. "Small creatures, drifting in the nebula. Most are harmless, some are fragile. We can help them if we act carefully." Without hesitation, Cale moved to the controls, his hands flying over the panels. Liara watched in silence, captivated. The way humans interacted with technology was different from her species, less psychic, more physical, more precise. Kyle adjusted shields, diverted energy, and opened the small cargo bays. "Can I help?" she asked timidly. Cale glanced at her and smiled. "Yes. Watch and learn. Then you can assist." Liara approached the console. Cale guided her hands over the controls, showing her how to release a small rescue pod into the nebula. Her violet eyes widened as she activated it. The pod drifted into the swirling gases, glowing softly, and began collecting tiny luminous creatures trapped in the turbulent clouds. For the first time, Liara felt a sense of purpose. She was helping, not hiding. She was part of something larger than herself, and humans, at least this human, were not monsters. They protected life. They valued it. Hours passed as Kale and Liara worked together. Each pod rescued more creatures, each action bringing new bursts of light and color across the nebula. Liara's fear of Kyle faded with every small success. She began to see him not just as a protector but as a teacher, a guide in a universe so vast and unpredictable. Finally, Kale leaned back, satisfied. "All clear," he said. "They are safe for now. The nebula will take care of them beyond this point." Liara exhaled, relief flooding her. She had feared humans would harm the creatures, or worse, that Kale would see her as incompetent. But he had trusted her, he had guided her, he had given her a chance to act, to do good. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice trembling. Kyle shook his head. "No, thank you. You acted bravely and carefully. That's all any being can ask of another." Liara looked back at the swirling colors of the nebula. She felt small, she felt fragile, but she also felt connected. The fear that had gripped her, since the auction, the terror of being bought, of being powerless, was beginning to transform. She realized that humans, at least this one, could inspire courage instead of fear. "Humans are different than I thought," she said quietly. Kyle looked at her curious. "Different how?" "They care," she said slowly. "Not for power, not for profit, but for others, even for beings they do not know, even for creatures no one else would notice." Kyle nodded. "Yes, some humans are like that. Not all, but enough to make a difference." Liara thought about the auction, about the fear she had felt when her cage had opened, about the crowd shouting and bidding over her life. And she thought about this moment, about working together with a human to protect life in the middle of space. She felt a strange warmth, a connection, a sense that maybe she was not alone in the universe. As the ship moved away from the nebula, Liara continued to gaze out the viewport. Stars stretched infinitely, distant worlds glimmered like tiny jewels, and she felt a sense of wonder she had never known. The terror of the auction, the fear of being a captive, had not disappeared completely, but it had shifted. It was no longer the center of her universe. Now it was replaced by curiosity, by hope, and by awe. Kale watched her from the side, noticing the change. It was subtle at first, the way her shoulders relaxed, the way her hands stopped trembling, the way her eyes followed the stars instead of darting in fear. Slowly he realized that she was beginning to trust him. Not fully, not yet, but enough to take the first steps toward understanding humans, toward seeing them not as threats, but as allies. "Tomorrow," Kale said gently, "I will show you the ship's library, knowledge from hundreds of worlds. You will see what humans have learned, what they value, and what they fight to protect. You may even find things that surprise you, about humans, and about yourself." Liara nodded, her mind spinning. The universe was bigger than she had imagined, full of dangers, full of beauty, and full of possibilities. And in the center of it, humans, at least some humans, could be forces for good. "I want to learn," she said finally. Kyle smiled. "Good. Learning is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is what makes the universe a little less frightening." For the first time since the auction, Liara slept peacefully, not because the universe was safe. Kale knew better than anyone that danger was always present, but because for the first time, she felt protected. Because for the first time, she realized that courage could come from unexpected places. Because, for the first time, she began to see wonder instead of terror. As the Resolute sailed further into the endless dark, stars twinkling like distant beacons, Liara dreamed of possibilities. She dreamed of knowledge, of exploration, of discovery, and of the strange, brave human who had shown her that even in the cold, vast universe, there could be kindness. And for Commander Kale, watching her sleep, he knew the journey had only just begun. She was changing, slowly but surely, and he was proud to witness it. In the universe of fear and greed, they had found a moment of hope, a spark that could grow into something extraordinary. The stars outside continued their silent dance, endless, beautiful, and full of wonder. Just like Liara's heart, the ship hummed steadily as it cut through the endless black of space. Outside, distant stars flickered like tiny lanterns. Inside, Liara moved slowly through the corridors of the Resolute, her violet eyes wide with curiosity. She had spent the last few days adjusting to the rhythm of life aboard the human ship. At first, everything had been frightening. The loud engines, the strange smells, the sheer size of the vessel. But now a new feeling had begun to grow. Fascination. Commander Kale walked beside her, guiding her with quiet patience. He had promised to teach her about humans, about their knowledge, their culture, and their values. Liara had agreed to learn, and now she found herself eager to absorb everything he showed her. Today, Kale said, I will show you the library. Liara's eyes widened. She had seen rooms filled with devices and consoles, but a library was something different. She expected books, rows and rows of paper, perhaps. But the human library was alive in a way she had not imagined. Holographic displays floated above consoles, showing images of distant worlds, creatures, and histories. Data streams moved like rivers of light carrying knowledge from hundreds of civilizations. Liara gasped softly. It is beautiful, she whispered. Kale smiled. Knowledge can be beautiful, and dangerous if used unwisely. That is why humans value learning and wisdom together. Power without understanding leads to destruction. That is why we teach, share, and explore. He gestured toward a holographic projection of a star system. Planets rotated in slow motion, their surfaces detailed with mountains, oceans, and cities. This is the human home system, Kyle explained. Our world is called Earth. Humans have learned much from observing the stars, other species, and their own mistakes. We strive to do better. Liara stepped closer, studying the projection. She saw the cities, the vast forests, and the oceans teeming with life. She had read about humans before, but seeing it all laid out so clearly filled her with wonder. Humans were not just warriors. They were creators, explorers, thinkers. Humans are clever, Liara said softly, but also compassionate. Kale nodded. Yes, compassion is a choice. It is not easy, but it is what allows us to protect life, to build alliances, and to face challenges together. We fight when we must, but we prefer to understand first. That is why some humans are different from other species you may have met. Liara considers she had met many species in her life, some cruel, some indifferent. The Resolute drifted silently near the orbit of a distant planet, its surface covered in green forests and sparkling lakes. It was uninhabited by humans, but reports had suggested small alien communities might exist here. Commander Kyle had come to study the planet, to chart its resources and ensure it remained untouched by hostile forces. Liara stood at the observation deck, her violet eyes fixed on the planet below. It is peaceful, she whispered. Kyle nodded. Yes, but peaceful places can attract danger. That is why we remain vigilant. Strength is not only for battle, it is for protection. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped urgently. Kale moved to the console, his hands flying over the controls. Hostile fleet incoming, he said, his voice calm but sharp. Unknown vessels. Weapons active. Liara's heart leapt. She had trained her mind to remain calm in small ways, but this was different. The human she had come to trust, the very human who had protected her, was about to face a danger unlike any she had seen. What do we do? She asked, her voice tense. We prepare, Kale replied, and we protect the planet. He guided Liara to a tactical station, showing her the holographic display of the approaching fleet. Ships unlike any Liara had seen before, dark and angular, moved in formation. Their intentions were clear: attack anything in their path. Kale's hands moved over the controls, adjusting shields and plotting defensive maneuvers. "We will not fight for conquest," he explained. "We will fight to defend life. That is what humans do. That is what we choose." Liara watched, her fear mingling with awe. Humans, she realized, were brave not because they sought war, but because they chose to stand against it when necessary. The first ships of the hostile fleet entered range, firing energy blasts that streaked across the void. Kale moved the Resolute with precision, avoiding the attacks while keeping the planet in view. Liara followed his movements, absorbing every calculation, every adjustment. "Can I help?" she asked quietly. Kale glanced at her. "Yes, you will. Assist me with the fleet's sensors. Your psychic abilities can detect patterns they cannot. Focus and guide me." Liara took a deep breath. She had practiced controlling her mind, but now the stakes were real. Closing her eyes, she reached out with her senses, feeling the presence of the enemy ships. She could sense their formation, their movements, their weaknesses. "2 ships, on the left flank," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. "They are moving slower than the others. Targeting their engines may slow the fleet." Kyle nodded. "Good. Engage." He directed the ship's energy beams at the identified targets. The first 2 enemy ships faltered, their engines disrupted. Liara's eyes widened. Her psychic guidance had made a difference. Together, human ingenuity and alien perception were turning the tide. The battle continued. The hostile fleet advanced, but Kyle's strategy, combined with Liara's insight, allowed the Resolute to protect the planet without firing destructively at its surface. Energy shields flared, laser beams danced across the void, and the nebula-lit sky became a canvas of courage and precision. Liara's fear began to shift again, as it had before. She realized that humans were not reckless warriors. They were protectors, who combined intelligence, courage, and compassion, and this human, Kale, was a living example. Hours passed, and the hostile fleet faltered. Their ships, damaged and confused, began to retreat. The Resolute followed, ensuring they could not regroup for another strike. Finally, the void was quiet again, filled only with the hum of the human ship and the distant glow of the planet below. Kyle exhaled deeply, leaning back in his chair. "It is over. For now." Liara looked at him, her eyes filled with respect and awe. "You saved them. All of them. You risked yourself for a planet you do not even inhabit." Kyle shook his head. "It was not just me, it was humans, yes, but also you. Your guidance helped protect life today. Courage and compassion come in many forms." Liara's heart swelled. She had feared humans, then admired them for knowledge and kindness, and now she truly understood their bravery. Humans did not fight for greed or power. They fought to protect, to learn, and to inspire hope. The planet below remained untouched, its forests and lakes reflecting the light of distant stars. Liara felt a connection to it, a sense of responsibility. She realized that Kale had taught her more than survival or tactics. He had shown her that courage and morality could exist even in the vast, dangerous universe. "Commander Kale," she said softly, I understand humans better now. Your courage, your kindness, it is different from what I expected. I admire it." Kyle smiled, a quiet, steady smile. "Thank you, Liara. That means a lot. And I hope you see now that trust and cooperation can change the universe little by little." Liara nodded, feeling a warmth she had never known. Her fear had transformed, first into curiosity, then wonder, and now into respect and admiration. Humans, at their best, inspired loyalty and courage. She understood why Kale had been different from the others at the auction. He had chosen to be more than a warrior. He had chosen to be a protector. The following days were quieter. Kyle allowed Liara to explore the ship further, learning more about its systems, the crew, and human strategies. She studied maps, analyzed star charts, and even practiced minor maneuvers on the ship's controls. Each activity deepened her understanding, not only of humans, but of the values that made them exceptional. One evening, as the two stood on the observation deck watching a distant nebula glow, Liara spoke. "I was afraid when I first saw humans, but now I see that some of you are different. Some can inspire courage." Kyle looked at her, his expression calm but proud. "Yes, courage is not the absence of fear, Liara. It is acting in spite of fear, choosing to protect life, knowledge, and hope. That is what humans do, and now you see it for yourself." Liara smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the nebula's colors. "I want to learn more about humans, about the universe, about myself. I want to help as you do." Kyle nodded. "And you will. Knowledge and courage grow together. You have already shown both. Together, we can explore, protect, and learn from the galaxy." For the first time, Liara felt fully part of a team. She no longer saw herself as a captive or as prey in the universe. She was an ally, a student, a participant in the courage and compassion that humans could inspire. That night, the Resolute drifted through calm space. The battle was over, the planet safe, and the stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Liara lay in her quarters reflecting on the events of the past days. She had gone from fear to wonder and now to admiration. Humans, she realized, were not only strong in body, they were strong in spirit. And Kale, the human warrior who had bought her at an auction, had shown her the best of what humanity could be: bravery, intelligence, kindness, and the willingness to protect life even at great personal risk. Liara closed her eyes, feeling a sense of purpose growing inside her. She knew the galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but she also knew that with humans like Kale, there was hope. Courage, compassion, and knowledge could light the darkness, even in the most dangerous corners of the universe. As the stars outside continued their silent dance, Liara smiled. Her journey was only beginning, but she no longer faced it with terror. She faced it with wonder, courage, and a growing respect for humans. And she knew that together with Kyle, they could face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. The universe was wide, unpredictable, and sometimes frightening, but it was also full of possibility. And Liara, the alien woman who had once trembled in fear, now understood that she was not alone, and that humans, at their best, could be a force for protection, hope, and change. The Resolute sailed quietly through the darkness of space, its engines humming softly as stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Liara stood at the observation deck, her violet eyes reflecting the distant lights of planets and nebulae. The events of the past weeks had changed her. She had gone from fear to wonder, then to admiration and trust. And now, she felt something deeper, a sense of belonging. Kale joined her, standing beside her quietly. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he allowed her to take in the beauty of the stars. After a few moments, he said softly, "You've changed a lot since the auction, Liara. I can see it in your eyes." Liara turned to him, a faint smile on her lips. "Yes," she admitted. "I have learned much. About humans, about courage, about trust, and about myself. I understand now why you act as you do, why humans fight, why you protect life, why you care." Kale nodded. "It is not easy, but it is the right thing to do. Humans are not perfect, but we try. And sometimes, that is enough to make a difference." Liara's gaze drifted back to the stars. "I want to be part of that. I want to help protect, to learn, to explore. I want to be with humans as an ally, not as someone afraid of them." Kale studied her, his expression calm and proud. "Then you will. You are no longer a captive, Liara. You are a partner." Together we can explore the universe, protect life, and seek knowledge. You have skills and insights humans do not. Your perspective will help us, just as our knowledge helps you. For the first time, Liara felt fully at peace. She no longer feared humans. She no longer doubted herself. She was ready to face the galaxy side by side with Kale and other humans, as equals. Over the following days, Kale and Liara worked together more closely than ever. They studied distant star systems, charted unknown planets, and monitored signals of Poe.